Hello, welcome to my coverage of the 2026 Atlas Mountain Race. I'm going to be doing daily coverage over the next week or so, taking a look at the race, following the race tracker and just diving into it and hopefully adding some detail to the dot watching experience. In this video, I'm going to give you a preview of the race route and some of the favourites to watch over the next week. So yeah, let's get into it. Before we get any further though, I've got a couple of sponsors for this coverage. So first up, Enduro bearings. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I've been using Enduro bearings for 3 or 4 years. I've used the XD15 bottom bracket on the Atlas Mountain Race myself. I've done it 3 times now. I think I've used pretty much the same bottom bracket for most of those trips. Enduro bearings are sponsoring this coverage. I'll dive into more details about the products as the week goes on. So a big shout out to Enduro bearings for their support. And a new sponsor to my coverage, Bucks and Box. These guys make premium metal bike boxes. It's all hand built in the UK. If you travel a lot with your bike, you know that quite often it can get scratched or damaged or generally abused by the baggage handlers if you're flying. So Bucks and Box, well, solves that problem really. So aluminium, really rugged bike boxes, not too heavy, and basically enables you to make sure your bike gets there and back in one piece. So again, I'll run through more of the details of the range throughout the week, but just want to say thank you to Bucks and Box for supporting this coverage. So without further ado, let's get into the race. So the tracking is on Map Progress as usual for the mountain races. As I record this, it's a little over 24 hours until the start. So the start is on the 6th of February, Friday the 6th of February at, I think it's 6 p.m. Although you never do quite know with the Atlas Mountain Race. There's a history of delays because of weather and various other things. But as it stands, the race is at 6 p.m. So it's a night start, which means a really long first day. So I'll be referring to this Map Progress tracker quite a lot over the coming week. And I'm sure you'll get very comfortable with it. But for now, I'm going to refer to Ride with GPS. So Ride with GPS, as you may know, are a supporter of myself and my race coverage. But rather handily, they're also sponsors of the Atlas Mountain Race. So all of the Atlas Mountain Race, or the mountain race routes for the Silk Road, Hellenic and the Taurus Mountain Race are all supplied on Ride with GPS, which makes it quite handy for me. So you can see there's all the checkpoints and points of interest, guest houses, places to sleep, and all riders have access to this before the start. So this is kind of the framework for Resupply and planning the race. Resupply is a key thing on the Atlas Mountain Race, mainly because there's areas with not much resupply. I think the longest section is about 200 kilometers without resupply. Which obviously requires some planning because you are on the edge of the Sahara Desert, so things can get quite warm, and it's a very attritional race, and resupply and food or lack thereof is one thing that really makes people fall apart in this race. So let's have a little look at the race. For the first time ever, the race is starting in Beni Mellal. So traditionally it started in Marrakesh, and this is kind of It's okay, but you normally end up with a quite a long 50k flat section, and everyone's bunched together really early on, which makes things a little bit chaotic. The start of the Atlas Mountain Race is always crazy. First big race of the year, so I think a lot of people are quite overexcited, and people always go off too hard. And you won't hear me say that. You'll hear me say that more than once over the course of this coverage. So there was a change to Beni Mellal, and I think the main thing was just to change up the route a little bit. And also, if I just change the layers here on Ride GPS to the terrain layer, you can see that basically the mountains that are crossed on when you pass Marrakesh, it's a relatively narrow part of the mountains. But by starting in Beni Mellal, it just gets you up quite high. It's quite a big plateau in this section. So yeah, you're quite high early on, and as you can see, the riders start with quite a big climb. And there was, or in the original route, there's supposed to be a hiker bike through a river, through a deep gorge. So that's shown on this route here. However, it's never simple on the Atlas Mountain Race. And the start route has changed. So basically, it's been a pretty wet and wild winter in Morocco and in the general Mediterranean area as well. So there's a lot of snowpack up high on the atlas. There's a big plateau. This area where my sort of cursor is here, it's a big wide plateau, and basically some of the early passes are snowed in still, so it's not really possible for the race to pass, or it probably is possible, but it's not very sensible or safe to send that many people up there. So the riders have been sent a new updated route in the last couple of days, which is this one here. So let me just zoom in a bit, and as you can see, the route's taking a slightly more easterly way on the main road up and over through Immachill, which is kind of the biggest town on the high plateau there. So it's going to be quite a lot of tarmac. Now you can see on Riber GPS here, the solid red denotes tarmac, and the checkered denotes kind of off-road or gravel, whichever way you want to look at it. So you can see there's going to be quite a big section of tarmac, basically. Probably almost the first quarter of the race is going to be on tarmac. Now it's a bit of a shame, but you can only do what you can do given the conditions. I suspect it's going to make it safer for everyone. I also suspect it's going to make it harder for everyone, because normally having a really hard off-road section early on in the race just spreads it out. But because of this, there's going to be, 200? I think we're on miles. Yeah, 200 miles. The first 200 miles are basically on tarmac. So starting at 6 p.m. Until the next morning. Basically sunrise is normally around 7 to 8ish in this time of year in Morocco. So the first 200 miles are probably going to be, well, by the leaders, almost going to be covered before sunrise. So it's it's gonna be hard. It's going to be fast, and I've absolutely no doubts that a lot of riders are going to go far too hard and early, too early on this first section. And because it's faster, you're closer together, it's harder to get gaps. Everyone's going to be able to see each other. Everyone's going to be chasing each other's wheels. There's going to be limited resupply through the night because the stuff's not going to be open. It's really quite remote and wild up there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. So it's going to be a crazy start, as always, as it has been for the last couple of years on the Atlas Mountain Race. So I'm going to run through the route a little bit. I've obviously done this 3 times now, and a couple of other trips to Morocco. So I'm pretty well versed in Morocco, and I've also actually ridden this section before. So this is the road that the riders will be crossing. I'm pretty sure this is the section towards Immachill. So it's up, if you're looking at my cursor, somewhere up here by this N2 sign. What I'll do is I'll just put on global heat maps, personal activities on Riber GPS. So if you've got premium on Riber GPS, you can activate the heat maps. I'll put a link to sign up if you like what you see and you feel like you want to sign up to Riber GPS. There's a link on the screen now. And as you can see, this purple line is a tour I did, I think it was the start of 2023 maybe, I can't remember, a few years back. So I went up and over the mountains through Dada's Gorge, which is where the riders will come down later. I'll show you the photo in a minute. Over this amazing pass up here, it's like a 3,000 meter pass. The riders are going a bit lower because of that snowpack, so they'll be following the main road and then cutting back up and across this little gravel pass. I expect it will still be around 2,000 meters, so there could be some snow, some mud up there. It could also be frozen. If the riders are going to hit this and it's still dark or early in the morning, it does get cold, so the ground can freeze. So just to put it in perspective, when I was up here, it was January, the first week of January. I think it was 2023, and I started, and before the sun came up, it was -7 on this road that I'm picturing. So yeah, it's definitely it's never simple on the Atlas Mountain Race. So as you can see by this route, the purple line here is where I went, and the red line is where the race goes. So following that N2 road, and then cutting back in, and then down Dada's Gorge, which is quite touristy. There'll be plenty of resupply in this gorge. I'll just show you the photo of that gorge. It's quite spectacular. So yeah, the riders will be passing down here. Again, it's going to be cold if it's early in the morning. It is quite high up, and when you're descending from the heights, it will get quite cold. That's one of the things with the Atlas. It's hot in the day and quite cold at night, depending on where you are on the course. The further south you go, the warmer it is. But in the mountains, 2,000-3,000 meter mountains are cold, regardless of where they are and what time of year it is. So that is the point at which the riders will kind of then pick up the original course. This section here is the section that has limited resupply, so AFRA. So it's normally about 100k. I think because of the changes, it's going to add a few more k, but there is some resupply here by the looks of it. So yeah, there's a guest house CP1. So CP1, I think riders are going to be wanting to resupply. And then basically they're not going to get anything for the best part of the day then through this section here. There's no water. There's definitely no resupply. It's pretty wild, pretty remote, and I expect there'll be a queue of riders in Afra. If you're riding it and you're listening, first building on the left as you get into town, there's a little cafe. You can see actually from my heat maps here, the little purple bit. That's where there'll be a line of people eating their first omelette of the race, and you can actually stay there as well. There's a little room around the back of the cafe that they let you stay in. But then you're into the Atlas, good and proper then. So the section through here is quite spectacular. So this descent here, where the warning is, beautiful canyon. It's a long climb getting up there, but then the descent down is quite spectacular. So I'll just run a video. So I raced it last year. Got it at the perfect evening golden hour. So this is what the riders are going to be expecting. You can see here though, if it is wet up there, and the weather has been quite bad, this could turn to mud. So, you know, everyone thinks they're going to Morocco. You can see where the tyres have sunk into the ground there when it's soft. Everyone thinks they're going to go into Morocco and it's going to be nice and warm and sunny the whole time. But I've seen rain on 2 editions of the Atlas Mountain Race that I've done. So it is never simple. So be prepared for everything. And then, yeah, riders back down through Avra, through these sections here. And the first sort of big town to resupply on is Tasnakt. So that's quite a good resupply place. You can see on the bottom here, it's then followed by quite a long straight of tarmac. And one of the features of the Atlas is, yes, there are some quite big rugged off-road sections, but there's also quite a lot of long tarmac sections. So you have sections of high speed and sections of lower speed. And if you're not experienced on the race, it can be quite hard to judge distance and how fast you're going to cover things. So in terms of food, I'll just show you what basically you'd be looking at. So this is a typical resupply. This was in Tasnakt last year. You'll see a lot of this bread. You see omelettes. I went for 3 there. And also soup. That was the soup in the pot there. If you get a pot of soup, that's a bit of a bonus. But you can see the calories aren't necessarily that high, certainly for the expenditure. So you might want to consider taking quite a lot of food with you to start with. You're not going to be buying energy bars or anything like that. As soon as you run out of anything you're carrying, you're basically on bread and biscuits and maybe sweets. If you're very lucky, you might get an ice cream or a yogurt. But yeah, it's one of the reasons that this race is so attritional. And this is going to be kind of into the second day, I would have thought. And this is where we're going to start seeing, I think, some cracks forming. And the people that have started going out way too hard, which there is every single year, will start to come undone in this kind of area. So there's a long road section after there. So again, it's a chance to either put the hammer down. You can make quite a big difference on these tarmac roads if you're really pushing hard and got a nice area position. This is that section there. And then there's a nice descent down to the second checkpoint. So that checkpoint's basically been in it from the start. And this is your kind of typical track, quite rugged. There's not really much in the way of single track, if any, on this race, but there are a lot of Jeep tracks, and as you can see, they're fairly rugged, so you're definitely going to want to be on a mountain bike for this kind of thing. Personally, if I had the option, I'd probably take a full suspension mountain bike just for that added comfort. It all adds up. Even though the bikes are slightly heavier than a hardtail, for example, they are just more comfortable, and this race is super attritional, so it's all about saving energy whenever you can, and having the right bike helps with that. So that section I just pictured is the descent through here where the cursor is, down to CP2 in Azarega. My pronunciations are horrendous, so apologies in advance. And then you've got a bit of a kind of, some bits off-road, then a big sort of road drag, then some more kind of off-road sections. And then we've got the big, one of the classics of the Silk Road Mountain Race, which is the Old Colonial Road, which is this section through here. Now, the Old Colonial Road basically does what it says on the tin. It's an old colonial road. I think it was the French that made it. And then the locals basically blew it up as they were fighting the resistance. But it's beautiful. This was sunrise last year. I've slept at the top of it twice before. It's a really, really spectacular place. And if you get there alone in the right light, it's beautiful. If you get stuck there in the middle of the day, it's probably not so beautiful. And it's probably quite hot. And it's quite rough as well. Again, a full suspension is going to be really very much like the fastest option over this stuff. Anyone doing it on a gravel bike, you can do it on a gravel bike, but you're probably going to be smashing a lot of rocks down here. You've got to think about your tyres. It's quite unforgiving on bikes, this event. Well, it's unforgiving on everything. But this is a key crux. And I think once you've kind of passed the Old Colonial Road, in my opinion anyway, you're kind of on not the home run, but you kind of by that point know you can probably get it done. There's not going to be too much more crazy stuff thrown at you. You've done the most sort of remote places, the roughest places, and some of the biggest passes. So that's this section through here. And then you're kind of zigzagging around a bit, and you've got the classic crossing of the desert. So this big straight section here. Actually, I should probably go back to the checkpoint first. So CP3. So Hotel Tifarwine. So this has been the checkpoint in Tarafut, I think it is, or Tafrut. This checkpoint has been there since the race started, and if you're racing and you're listening or watching, then you want to resupply here. So you won't get a better resupply on this race than this checkpoint. So I got spaghetti bolognese. I think I got a couple of sandwiches there in my yellow bag there. A couple of big sandwiches to go. There's not an awful, well, there's a bit more resupply now, but you still want to just stock up on stuff when you can get it. Fill up with water, get a couple of bottles of Coke, maybe have 2 meals if you want. But yeah, this is a good place. You can get a shower as well. You can even stay there depending on the time of day. So yeah, this is don't miss a trick here. CP3. By the time you'll get here, you'll know the score, and you'll know that you'll know you're onto a good thing by the time you get there. And then again, you've got a few more climbs. Where are we on the map? Let's just get the cursor in the right place. So as you can see, a bit of a road section. These climbs don't look big in the grand scheme of things, but they're fairly long climbs. Probably some of them are sort of almost 10k. So yeah, they kind of add up. Then you've got a few off-road sections, and then if you look on the map here, there's this long straight section which looks downhill. That looks nice and easy, doesn't it? That's the desert. So that's the sand section, and some years you can just ride it. So I've ridden through it, no problem at all. So if there's been a bit of moisture in the air or rain recently, the sand gets quite sort of packed down and quite hard. However, last year I walked quite a lot, and this is what it was like. So it could be a couple of hours, 2-3 hours, really slow going if it's as dry as it was last year. Top tip is to stop and let as much air out of the tyres as you possibly can. You want them almost flat. It's worth doing that and then spending the time to pump them up, and you can pretty much, some people rode it. If you're strong enough and you've got low enough tyres, you can probably ride it. You might be a bit on and off at times, but yeah, it's a slow going section, and it can be a bit of a like if it's mind games are a thing. You think you're going to cover that section in, I don't know, an hour, and actually it's going to take 3 hours. So you do have to think about these things, and yeah, another reason that the Atlas race is a lot harder than it looks on paper. After that section, you can see you're kind of you think you're almost done. It's almost in touching distance. Just over 100 miles, what 200 odd k to go. There's some fairly good resupply in this kind of valley area. You go through quite a few towns, and then you've got this long climb. Now it says on Riber GPS that it's off-road, but it's hard. It's not as much as it says. So I'd say probably half of that is actually tarmac. So a lot of the roads in Morocco, or the high mountain roads, are gradually being tarmacked. So from the bottom here where it says petrol station to pretty much the top, it's now tarmac. So it's fairly fast going, but it can be quite hot in that area. Then there's some cool off-road in the top here. Actually, last year the locals are kind of clocked onto the race, so you might see some sort of pop-up stalls just trying to sell chocolate bars and water and things like that. You'll be playing like double the rate, and I'm pretty sure they get more expensive the further down the field you are, as they can push their luck a bit more. But by that point, you don't often care. And then you're dropping down, and you can see this on the elevation at the bottom here. It's the Stelvio of Morocco, as it's been nicknamed. So a nice hairpin climb, just when you think you're kind of almost done. I've done it in the dark a couple of times now, so I couldn't tell you what the view's like. But you can see there's plenty of hairpins up there. But once you're over that, you know you're pretty much broken the back of it, and it's, I wouldn't say downhill to the finish, because it's definitely not downhill to the finish. But you're on the home run then. You're definitely on the home run, and heading down towards the coast. And once you get down to the coast, you're basically, that is the home run then. So there we go. It's a coast road, and interestingly, the first time I was there, some of this is tarmac, and then other places, for example, here where the checkered section is. The first year I did it, it was actually pretty rough double track. But then last year, basically they were doing building works the whole way through. So they were grading it, and it was much smoother, and it looked like they were preparing it for tarmac. So this year, I would not be at all surprised if most of this section is now tarmac, or certainly smoother and faster than it has been in the past. So I think this final section is probably going to be a little bit easier than it has been in the past. Who knows? It is Morocco, anything can happen. And then the final drag is tarmac along the coast here. Can be a bit of a headwind though, so just don't wish away the distance too quickly in your mind, because it will definitely take longer than you think. So yeah, that's basically my quick overview of the race route. So hopefully that was useful. If you're listening to this on the podcast, so I do run a little podcast as well, so I'll make this available as audio. If you're listening to this, I appreciate it's probably not not that useful, but the daily updates should be better. So if you're racing and you want to listen to what's going on, then yeah, check out the ULTRASCAPE podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and a number of other platforms, and I'll do the daily updates on YouTube as always. So there we go. So that is that's the route, and I basically, now I'm going to run through some of my favourites, some of the people I think could win it or who are notable to keep an eye on during the dot watching. Now this isn't an exhaustive list, but I think there's some interesting people, and there'll always be new people who come up in this Atlas race. There's a lot of unknowns that always sort of target this as maybe one of their first races, or put a lot of work in through the winter. So this is by no means exhaustive. However, I've picked out some riders. So my first favourite. So the first three here are going to be favourites for the win in my books, win or podium. So first up, Cynthia Carson. She's a clear-cut favourite. She's already won this before. She was the fastest woman in 2024, I believe. And I think she was top 15 overall. So super strong, definitely strong enough to take the women's win. And I think she could probably take, if she got it right, top 10 overall. Super experienced. And for me, experience is key on this event. There's a number of riders who've, been leading and scratched from the lead. People go too hard too early and scratch quite often. And the fact that Cynthia's already won it, she's got the experience, just makes a firm favourite in my books. The next favourite, Seb Brewer. Again, I'm not sure if he's finished it yet or not, but he's led it a couple of times and had a few scratches. So he's been building up that bank of experience. He's super, super strong. He's one of the strongest, if not the strongest guy in the whole field. He's won cross-country marathon, Olympic cross-country, European titles. So he's world-class in pedigree. It's not quite come together for him yet on the Atlas Mountain Race, but he's back. I think it's his third time back. So it's going to be hard to look far past Seb. So I expect him to certainly be up the front and challenging for the win. And if he gets it right, I think Seb can win it. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes for him. Next up, this is Thomas Beret. So he's actually been third and fifth. I think it must be his fourth time taking part. He's pretty much taken part every time I've done it. So Thomas, he's probably not going to be like one of the strongest and necessarily fastest on paper in the field. But he is strong and he's fast and he's experienced. So that counts for a lot. Experience at this race is absolutely key. He's already podiumed. He's already come fifth. And I wouldn't put it past Thomas to really, push the podium. I think Thomas can get on the podium. There's going to be a lot of guys scratching out the front. It happens every single year. And Thomas is a guy, he's not going to scratch, not unless there's something majorly wrong. He's going to ride sensibly. So he's going to be there to pick up the pieces. And I think that will mean a very strong result for Thomas. I'm definitely looking forward to following Thomas and see how he gets on. So those three riders, I guess, are my clear favourites with experience. But then I've got a list of riders who I think it's worth keeping an eye on and have proven pedigree in other events. However, this is their first time in Atlas, and as I said, experience is key. And you can't really learn the skills required for Atlas at any other race. They are quite specific. So let's have a little look at a few other riders in no particular order. So first up, Kerry McPhee. She's won the Highland Trail 550 and numerous other races in the UK. So she's definitely strong. Definitely strong enough to challenge the women's podium for sure. However, as I said, her first Atlas race, and the conditions are somewhat different to the Highland Trail. The terrain, is not necessarily that different. Highland Trail race has like hard off-road sections and kind of easier tarmac and gravel sections in between. So the rhythm of the race actually I find quite similar to Highland Trail. So I think she'll be comfortable with that. However, there's just a steep learning curve to racing the Atlas. So it'd be interesting to see how she copes with it. Next up, Victor Bozzoni. So he of course won the Transcontinental race last year. Shows how strong he is, and this year he's got more of a focus on the off-road races, starting here with the Atlas Mountain Race. So it'd be interesting to see how Victor goes. Obviously he's strong enough, but I guess the question, and this applies to everyone, is how is he going to cope with the conditions, the lack of food, the terrain, all of that stuff that adds up and makes it very difficult. Also remember that there's almost 12 hours of darkness on the Atlas Mountain Race, and that has a bit of a psychological effect as well. Some people just don't cope with it as well. Victor is another one of those ones who's definitely going to be up there, definitely going to be one to watch. I'm very excited to see how he gets on and transfers the Transcontinental kind of win into these off-road races. Victor Bozzoni. Next up, Vincent Chenge. So he's the Kenyan cross-country champion, another African rider. Again, experience isn't massive at these events, and I think he's very much. I've helped him a little bit with some information and stuff. So I think he's definitely strong enough. He's a really strong cyclist, and the heat and things like that, and the food will not be as much of a challenge to him as maybe some of the European riders. But again, it's the experience and managing himself is going to be the key thing for Vincent. See how he gets on. And now on to Chris Melman. Again, a name maybe not that familiar with these mountain races. So this is his first attempt at the Atlas Mountain Race, and if I'm correct, I think it's the longest event that he's taken part in so far. However, he's done really well at events like Unbound XL, the Tracker 560. He was third last year. So he's obviously got a bit of pedigree. It's going to be interesting to see how he can apply himself to the longer races. Definitely looking forward to that. Next up, Rob Britton. Again, super experienced, done well at excelled at some of the shorter ultras, longer gravel races. So he won Unbound XL last year. He's won the Badlands. 2 world-class rides there to win those events. He's an ex-pro cyclist, super, super strong. However, how does that transfer over to the Atlas Mountain Race? It's going to be fascinating to see. And I suspect there's going to be a group of people like Rob and Chris and Victor, maybe Vincent, and like Seb Brewer, all just totally smashing it at the start. I guess the question is who's going to ride more sustainably someone like Thomas, I suspect, who's going to ride more sustainably, and then kind of use that saved energy and use it later in the race when it could potentially count for more. Another female rider to watch, Helen Fromerty. So this is at the top of Kogeti Pass. So I actually rode with Helen a little bit last year. She was first pairs in the Silk Road Mountain Race. Did she win? I think she was on the podium at the Trans-Pyrenees race last September. So the Silk Road race was actually, well, I think this ride here up to the top of Kogeti was pretty much one of her first ever mountain bike rides. So she's learned a lot and she's really strong. She's experienced in these kind of remote settings. So I think that experience of Kyrgyzstan is going to stand her in good stead for this race. So yeah, excited to see how Helen gets on. Another name to keep an eye on. So this is, I have to excuse my pronunciations. So Justyna Jazok from Poland. Again, she's had a couple of promising results. She was the fastest woman in the Bright Midnight last year. And she's done well at other events. Kind of quite new on the sort of ultra cycling scene, and I would suggest that the Atlas is probably the longest event she's done. And again, she's obviously strong, but it's all the other factors. It's the Atlas Mountain Race is not just about pedaling. There's so much more to manage with food and heat and cold and raining sometimes, and the darkness. So yeah. It's going to be interesting to see, and out of all that group that I've just mentioned, pretty much who's going to be able to manage with that, as well as the pedaling side of things. And that's why Atlas is always so fascinating, because there's so much that can go wrong, and it normally does. And finally, another couple of names just to keep an eye on. So first up, Rebecca Rush, bit of a mountain biking legend. So yeah, she's done loads of really cool big rides over the years, and she's headed out to Morocco with her husband. I think his name's Greg. I think they're racing as a pair. So yeah, I'm not sure if they're just sort of aiming to get round, or whether they're aiming to sort of win the pairs or not. But it's just really cool to see Rebecca coming over and taking on this race. So looking forward to seeing how her and husband get on in the race. And finally, Juan Antonio Fletcher. So actually, he met me at the finish line last year, which is really nice. I've met him a couple of times. Yeah, Juan he's taking part in the Atlas Mountain Race for the first time. For those of you who don't know much about him, he was ex-professional, won stages of the Tour de France, and he's won some pretty big bike races in his life. And I always find it fascinating how these guys end up, doing these ultra races. So yeah, I think it's the first time he's done one of these kind of. He's done a few races like Badlands and the Tracker, but this is more of a mountain bike race. So it'd be interesting to see how he gets on. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing to watching his dot. So yeah, hopefully we'll get some good little stories from him as the race develops. So that is my roundup, my preview of the Atlas Mountain Race. I'll be doing daily updates. So the race starts tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. So my first update, I imagine, is going to be in the afternoon on Saturday. I've also launched memberships on my YouTube channel. I've got quite a few members already. Basically, the main benefit is I'll be uploading the videos slightly earlier, so it'll be a couple of hours head start on there. I'll also be having a prize draw, so I'll give you more information about that. So yeah, consider signing up as a premium member. I will also be doing a Q&A video for all premium members. So if you've got questions, put them in the comments. And at the end of the week, I'll put them all together and I'll do a members only Q&A on the race. About anything about Atlas Mountain Race, really. So hopefully there's some good knowledge I can share for those who are interested. So thanks for watching. I'm really looking forward to covering this event. It was actually the first event I ever did daily updates on back in 2023. So yeah, see you all over the next week. I look forward to it.